First up is Xana. Okay. First of all, the opener's looking good, and it came together. The one thing I would say about that is these holes, the way they appear all at once. I thought it'd be better if they showed up one at a time, timed with gunshots, or. Um, and then the other thing, we didn't hear it this time because I turned the sound down, but the audio cuts out all at once. So I would kind of, fade that down gradually instead, and then this would really benefit from adding some sound effects. I think from like a rendering point of view, I think you use did you end up using hardware render? If so, make sure you turn on the anti-aliasing option. For example, if you look at this post, where you see those alias steps there, it would look a lot smoother if you have anti-aliasing on. Also, ambient occlusion will help the look of this as well. I can show you how to turn those on. If you go into the render settings, and let me just make an object so we can see what I'm talking about. Change this to my hardware 2.0 and go into this tab here. You will find anti-aliasing, and you can turn these on. And you can actually see it right here in the view. If you look closely at this edge here, when I turn these on, it fixes that. You can put the samples up to 8. And then the other thing, just let me, here I'll just put a plane right here. If I turn on ambient occlusion, it puts this sort of self-shadowing thing here, and you can adjust it as well. Change the size and stuff like that. But I usually just leave it at the defaults typically. But anyway, so that can kind of give it a bit of a nicer look. And also, if I create like a directional light, for example, create lights, directional light, and then hit 7, I can see my lights, and maybe under lighting I turn on shadows, and when I render that out, I'll get the cast shadow as well. So through the hardware 2.0 render, you can get a decent looking render out of it that happens really, really fast, without taking a really long time. Okay, so it's got the basics, but there, you could do a little more to get a little bit of a story in there. I'm not real fond of this showing that spin there, so you could just fix that with editing, just sort of cut that out, maybe cut straight to this one or something. I think also if you can get more body movement in there, because they're sort of frozen here, like get a little root movement, and you've got a blink and eyelid, but if you could have like have them shift right from one foot to the other or something like that, maybe move some more of the facial controls, And I like that the blinks are really fast, and it's good that the eyebrow movement is fast, but it's kind of like a jump. It could sort of just looks like one frame, so maybe slow that down a little bit. The blinks are good though, just the way they are. So yeah, I think overall, you could do a little more and maybe get an ending on there as well. But I think just generally more movement with the characters. Don't have them their whole body stock still. Like animate the root a little bit. Shift them around, even just subtly enough to keep them alive. Next up is Anna. All right. So, yeah, well, I'm not going to spend much time on this. I'll come back to it when I open the After Effects file. But I think this came together really nicely. I think, you really did a lot to get a whole story going in there, which I think is great. And, there's a lot of animation, and you got the render done with the cast shadows and all that. So that's really good. Felt like looks just a little dark in the shadow areas, maybe, but I guess, it's all right. I'm not real fond of. I might cut out of these a little sooner because they sort of leave the frame here. So I might cut out by like here or something. Like you might not. You don't need to show them completely leave frame. And then also that's kind of a weird cut. Like you can just. You don't need that shot. These are all good. Like that you got some body movement on there and some head movement. It's nice. And when the character is moving, try to get some animation on the root as well. Think about how you would kind of shift to one side as you grabbed your gun, and then maybe shift back as you pointed it. And then same with this guy a little bit. It looks like you've got a little body movement there. That shot I'm not real fond of. I'm not exactly sure what you're trying to do with it. I thought it was sort of unnecessary. But I think if you wanted to have that shot, I think maybe a sound effect would really help us with a gunshot as well too. But I think if you're going to do that shot, just keep it still. Don't do that little rotation thing. But I think what's good is you really got the story across. The way he peeks and the way he's sorry about what he's done, falls to his knees, you know, and then laughs at him. I mean, you got the story across, and that's really the most important thing. So I think that's good. I mean, certainly there's more time you can get spent in the animation, really looking to move more of the controls. When he's standing here, again, just like, put some kind of curve in the spine and those kinds of things. Like maybe he's hunched over more, for example, rather than having a stock straight spine, especially when he's crying. Maybe try to get the hands more accurately on the face. And maybe have him drop and hit on his knees a little harder. It might be better to go to this wide shot sooner so we can see him fall to his knees, like meaning see the knees contact the ground. But this is really strong. Good work. Okay, this is just the After Effects issue we were talking about, which was the light ray effect is only working inside the text box here. So to solve that, here's the text thing, here's the effects on it. I'm going to select these and copy them, and then just delete them off of the text, and then right mouse click. Actually, before I do that, let me just move back and make sure we're kind of before the beginning of it in the timeline, just in case that has an effect. So let me, I don't think it does, but let's copy those, delete, right mouse click, pre-compose, and that'll turn that into an embedded composition. So that's its own composition, but embedded inside this one. And then rather than just affecting the area where the text is, the composition is set to be the size of the whole screen. So the effects will affect the whole screen. And you can see this doesn't have any effects on it, so I'll just do Control V for paste. Now it has those effects. And we can see that this effect isn't bounded to that box. You can see them coming off here. You might notice, I think something funny did happen with the timing of that. I think I'm not sure, but I can just revert real quick. File, revert. Just want to check if that timing was right, because it seemed like it started here around 12 seconds. So I might, just to be sure, I might go to the first frame and copy these here, copy, and then delete, and then right mouse click, and then pre-compose, OK, and then paste, just to make sure. So it's supposed to start around 12 seconds. Oh yeah, it looks like it kind of, wait a minute, did that paste? Oh yeah, why am I not seeing him now? Son of a gun. The heck? Oh, it looks like I put the animation way over here. That's kind of weird. So it's kind of messing with where it's putting your animation. Alright, we'll just make sure to move these keyframes to get your animation in the right place. And then, oh yeah, there we can see it now. Okay, so the other thing you might be noticing is this kind of thing blocking here, but that's just your door. So you might do, like, if I do select the door and hit T for opacity, maybe after the door is done moving, I'll keyframe this and then make that 0, and that way, let's see, I won't have that problem now. You can see it's not clipping that. So anyways, yeah, make sure your animation is in the right position, but you know, pre-compose and then copy, copy the animation, delete it, copy the effects, delete it, pre-compose, paste the effects, make sure the animation timing's right. Next up is Vivian. Got some here. No. Okay. We've talked about the opener before, but generally not a big fan of combining a lot of different fonts. I would tend to maybe just stick to this one you have for productions and replace that with this font. And yeah, not real fond of this font. It's a little, it's okay, but it looks a little, I don't know, sort of common looking. But if you do the guns shooting, I might have them physically move back, not just rotate. And also, you could do like the muzzle flash and smoke if you wanted to take that further. for the rendering, I demonstrated a little bit in the beginning using the My Hardware 2.0 render, and you'll get a much cleaner look if you follow those instructions at the beginning of this video, so you might want to check that out. I'm not real fond of the music either. You might try a different song. It just sounds very, I don't know, the just keyboard, electronic keyboard sounds, So I think the drifting camera is interesting. It's not too bad, but I think also get the characters moving. Move them by the root. Move their neck and spine and those kinds of things to make them more alive. Maybe some blinks are always good, and other facial expressions. If you can pose the hands a little bit better right now. He's not gripping the gun, so animate the fingers to grip the gun would help. And maybe change the timing of that, because if he's fired and shot already, and he hasn't even drawn yet, it just seems like there's a long pause. Like, I feel like he would have already drawn, or at least be almost done drawing. Like, I would start the shot. You could just do it with editing too. You could just start at the here, so it looks like he reacts more. And then maybe you want to put more of an ending on some kind of resolution. Which did one or the other one of them win? Or did something unexpected happen? So think about getting an ending on there. Next up is Jamin. Okay, so for the opening, I think we talked about maybe working on the shape of these letters of the logo a little bit. And with the fire, it sort of looks like we're seeing flames through the text rather than it being burned in. So maybe try to do a more of a bevel emboss kind of thing with the text to look like it's indenting it, and maybe tone down the orange flame thing a little bit. Although adding smoke might be nice. The train pulls in awfully fast. They usually would come in more gradually. Your camera, that first camera moves a little bit roller coastery, but the other camera cuts I thought were pretty good. I like that camera move, for example, and these camera angles are good. Although there's really no animation on the characters; they're just frozen. So adding, subtle movement, the breath, a blank, facial expressions, a head tilt, these kinds of things would really help bring it to life, because right now they're just sort of frozen mannequins for all those shots. That grabbing the gun was good animation, and this is alright, but again, there's, like the last one, there's this long pause. Like, he draws and shoots, and then he waits, and then he draws and shoots, and I would think they would for the most part draw at about the same time instead of having that long pause in between. So overall it's good. It's come together, and again, I would try to think of an ending, some kind of resolution. Maybe one of them gets shot, or the other, or maybe something unexpected happens. So I'm thinking about getting an ending on there. Next up is Deontay. Okay, so I think this all came together well. The opening's good. It's got some interesting, texture and depth to it. Nice images. And this is looking alright. There's some kind of pop there in that fade in. You know, if you look at the aliasing here, you can see where the anti-aliasing would really improve the look of these, as I demonstrated at the beginning of this video. Got something floating up here. We might see if you can get rid of that as well. Something's going on with his ear. You might try reversing the surface direction, maybe, on that. That's under the surfaces menu, or if you're using 2015, the edit nerves menu. And again, for a lot of these shots, they look just too frozen mannequin-like. You know, get a little bit of movement, shift the root, maybe shift the weight from one foot to another, twist slightly, you know, some finger animation, just something to keep them alive. I like the facial expression stuff here. But again, when they and the grab itself was good, but you know, when you grab your gun, you kind of like shift your weight out of the way and then shift your weight back, and you know, to get a little bit more of the body's motion there. And that was good too. Nice hand pose. And then you might want to put an ending on it. Maybe one of them gets shot, or the other one gets shot, or something unexpected happens. Next up is Jersey. Okay, I think this came together really well. The opener looks good, the lightning's a nice effect, and I like the transition to the aged paper. You know, the gun movements look good. Maybe the bullet could keep moving. I thought the train, well, like, it's okay. It seems to go by a bit fast. With your rendering, as I demonstrated at the beginning, it would look a lot cleaner if it was anti-alias. I like that ending point of view. Overall, I think what I'm really noticing is your nice camera work. I really like this pan with the character and this pan as well. And I thought this was very clever, this point of view shot with the character turning around. I thought that was a really good idea. If you use the hardware 2.0 renderer, you won't get stuff like these lines on there, and you can get a much cleaner image as well. I demonstrated that at the beginning of this video. The camera works good, but the characters are frozen. It'd be good to get them kind of shifting their weight. They could kind of, you know, do anything, scratch their leg or tilt their hat, or just kind of shift weight from one foot to the other, or take a breath, you know, just something so that they don't look so frozen, because there's really no animation on there at all on the characters. And you know, you could have a blink or an eye dart there or something. You know, and the grabbing the gun looks good, but you know, if we grab a gun from a holster, we might shift the weight to one side and shift back, or twist a little bit. You know, just a little more than just moving the arms. But yeah, this came together nicely. Good job. You just might want to add an ending to it. You know, decide what happens to one or the other characters at the end. Next up is Clive. Okay. So yeah, this all came together. I think for this effect here, where this is blurred thing is boxed in, you could use that same technique that I showed in the video earlier, where you pre-compose that layer and then add the effect, and you shouldn't get that boxed in thing happening then. The render looks pretty good. You've got some nice shadows in there, so that's working well. I like the long shadows. I think that's a nice composition there with a shadow on the ground. Again, as I've said with the other ones, get these characters moving. One thing with some of this framing is usually if the character is kind of looking off, he's sort of looking off to screen right, you should shift him a little bit more to screen left instead of giving the sort of space to look at. Like, look at how he's sort of crowded on this half of the screen and he's looking off in this direction. It would be better to have him on this side of the screen so there's kind of space to look into, in a sense, than on this side of the screen. They're not really animated, any of these shots, so get some animations, some facial animations, some subtle body movements. They could take a breath, they could shift their weight, twist a little bit. And same with here, the arm and hand fingers are good, but the rest of the body is frozen, so try to get a little body movement in there when he draws his gun. I would cut out some of this pause. It seems like too long of a pause between drawing the gun and the next one. And yeah, add some body movement in that as well.